Hello, this is Kaustubh Pradkar, 25 times full Ironman finisher. Today's podcast is very special to me. It's about the costs of racing an Ironman race. Oftentimes people ask me, how much do you spend on a race? Which is the cheapest race? Which is the easiest race? I'm going to talk about the cost factor in this video blog. Understand, I always tell people that even if you invest an X amount, what happens to you during an Ironman training phase and during the race is priceless. You cannot put a price tag, one, on the experience, the process, and then how you find yourself in different situations during the race. Trust me, none of my 25 races have been easy. I may have had some good days, but I've had races, but I've had some really bad days. So let's take you through the costs of racing an Ironman. Now understand, it's very hard to give you an overview of the costs because they're going to vary. One example is I'm going to talk to you about the cost in US dollars compared to Indian rupees. If you are someone like me who lives in India, I'm earning in rupees, and what's the conversion rate? It's about 76 right now. So $1 is 76 rupees. For this purpose, keep it easy. We're going to look at the dollar rate at 75. Okay, I hope your math is better than mine. So let's get through the conversion. The number one thing we want to talk about is the cost of your race registration. A full Ironman is going to be somewhere starting at $450 to $500. So Ironman South Africa is a great example of that. Going up all the way to $1,000. So your Ironman Kona is about $1,000. You got some races in between which are around $600, $700. So roughly on a race, you're spending anywhere between 35,000 rupees to about 80,000 rupees. Okay. Number one tip, plan ahead of time. Tier 1 is usually the cheapest. Okay. Tier 2 is going to be maybe $20 to $30 more. Price wise, not that much. And tier 3 is going to be the most expensive. Some races, especially in Europe, give you the opportunity of having a payment plan. So you pay in 3 installments and they add about 10 euros on top. But it's great for people who don't necessarily want to invest all that money up front. So every 2 months or so, you get an email. Once you finish the third payment, your price and your race registration is done. The next important thing is your travel. Now in travel, we are looking at your airfare. If you're traveling within Asia, South Korea, Korea, Langkawi, you're looking at between 25 to 30,000 rupees for an air ticket. Obviously, if you go to Europe, America, South America, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, you're looking at anywhere between minimum of 55 to 60,000 rupees and upwards. And I have spent about a lakh point something for my Kona race and a lakh point something just on air travel on my Ironman Brazil race. Asian Airlines and some of the European airlines allow bikes to fly for free. So big tip, always take a look at your airline policy and then decide which ones to go with. For example, Emirates. Some sectors will allow you 30 kilos and that includes your bike. So as long as you get your clothes, your training stuff, your racing stuff, and your bike under 30 kilos, plus 5 to 7 kilos of handheld luggage, you don't have to pay an extra dime. Keep that in mind. Look at hotels. My number one tip is that you either share the room with someone you know or live solo. Nothing beats living solo, especially during a race. Don't try and live in a hostel. It's cheap, but you don't know who the other 5 bed occupants or other 7 bed occupants are going to be. Let's not get into trouble the night before. Understand, most hostels cater to crowds who are looking to party. and most Ironman races are either Saturday or Sunday. So live solo. A decent hotel is going to charge anywhere between 3,000 to 5,000, 7,000 rupees per night. You're looking at about 5 to 6 nights for an Ironman. So plan ahead, book ahead. My tip is that find a hotel close to the finish line, because the last thing you want, and I have made that mistake, is after the finish, lug your bike and your racing gear a few kilometers away. It happened to me in Langkawi. Fortunately, the organizers gave us a taxi, and that solved that problem. The next is food. Again, food you can keep aside $50 to $60 per day, and that's going to include a good breakfast, a good lunch, and a good dinner outside. So roughly $10 for breakfast, and then 20 odd for lunch, and 20 or 25 for dinner. If you live in an Airbnb, you're going to include some of that cost. If you're Airbnb and most of them allow you to cook, you're sorted. Either take ready-to-eat packets from India, or you can buy basic stuff and save up that way. The next thing is this total. The cheapest one I would say is Ironman South Africa or Ironman Langkawi or Gurye. You're looking at roughly between 1 to 1.5 lakhs. 1.25 is a good number, a good ballpoint number for you to budget for. That's just your race registration, travel, whatever the race needs are that week costs. If you were to go to somewhere in America, Europe, obviously you're looking at extents of 2 lakhs plus. My suggestion is that if you want to do a race once, there's ample spaces you can go. Look at the course. If you have a friend traveling with you or your family, make it a vacation. Choose your race wisely and spend your hard-earned money in a good manner. There's ways you can splurge, but I've already given you the best ways to travel on a budget. So 1.2 or 1.5 lakhs is just your race week cost. Now let's look at each individual segment, right? The swim, and the swim is one of the cheapest sports, right? Your swim costumes, if you're looking at a 6-month training module, you're going to spend maybe 2,000 to 3,000 rupees. Get 2 or 3 decent costumes, your average speed or any of them. You need a nice race goggle. So I'll advise you to get 2 goggles. One is a dry goggle or a transparent goggle, and then the other one is a black tinted or a polarized goggle. That's going to be a little more expensive, but at some point during your race, the sun will come out on the swim, and you don't want to lose sense of direction, especially in the water. A good goggle, a TYR or a Speedo is going to be around 2,000 rupees. A decent one for training, 1,000, 1,500, budget 3,000 odd, and you're set. The next thing for the swim is you need caps. Ironman races require you to wear a cap. Someone like me, even with the best hairstyle, has to wear a cap on race day. So invest in a decent latex cap. Again, 700 to 1,000, at the most 1,500 rupees. My pro tip for this is that you put the goggle on first and then you put the cap on later. Especially in a race, something happens, someone yanks your cap off by mistake, your goggle still stays intact. The training gear for the swim is very, very straightforward. You need hand paddles, you need fins, you need a pull buoy. All of that, there's ample ways you can buy. It's not going to cost you between 3,000 to 5,000. That's the top line, 3,000 to 5,000. That's about that. So your swim training budget is going to be somewhere around 12,000 to 12,000, and that's for the 6 months. Understand, most of these accessories will last you multiple years. Then comes the most important investment, especially if you're doing a race in North America or Europe. It's a wetsuit. The wetsuit has 2 important functions. One, if you're going for a race like we did in Copenhagen, or like my Ultraman, the water was very, very cold. Ironman South Africa, great example last year. Water was bone chill. The wetsuit's going to keep you warm, and it's also going to make you buoyant. In India, there's not many companies where you can buy a wetsuit from. I would advise you either buy it the week of the race, unless you have friends who live in Europe or America. Xterra is my favorite brand. Blue 70 is another. Roca is another. Look for a decent size sale. Important tip here, each wetsuit company has their own sizing formula. So make sure that you check the web page and order correct. You don't want the wetsuit to be too tight, where you can barely move your arms, or too loose, and then water keeps seeping in on race day. When in doubt, go on the size below. You'd rather have it a little tight than have water seep in, and then all your advantage of buoyancy is gone. 12 to 15,000, roughly, $200 plus is what you can expect to spend on a good wetsuit. Wetsuits have two types. One is the sleeveless. It's only going to come till here. Someone like me who swim quite some time, I don't necessarily like the full because it adds a lot of restriction in my shoulders. I can get my stroke. I use a half sleeve many times. I know the water is going to be cold. Get the full sleeve. It's going to come right up to here. On race day, make sure your garment goes underneath your wetsuit. Put the wetsuit on top. I've had friends who made the mistake. They put the garment on top. What happens? You're excited finishing the swim. You come out. The wetsuit peeler pulls out and your garment goes with it. Next is your bike, and the biggest investment is your bike. I always tell people that if I were to give you an option, buy a cheap bike, but it's only going to last you a year, or buy a decent size bike, decent size and decent priced bike. We have to add some comedy in here. It's a decent priced bike. It's going to last you 3 to 5 years. Answer is simple, right? Save that extra 10, 20,000 rupees and buy a decent bike. For a lot of people, Scott, Merida, Trek, obviously I have my Quintana Roo here, are great options. Obviously you have Canyon. So look for sales, look what's available in your area. If you have the opportunity to ride the bike before so that you can size yourself, take that opportunity, please. If you don't have the budget, just buy a regular road bike. Again, that's going to be between 80,000 to 1 lakh for a decent road bike with a gearing of 105. That's the number you want to really harp down on. 105. That's the minimum gearing you want for a full Ironman race. Buy the road bike and put aero bars. Very, very useful on race day. They're not going to pinch you too much. Anywhere between 3 to 5,000 for a decent profile design. Aero bars is what you will spend. The advantage you get is much higher. Once you are done with buying and purchasing the bike, you have some things to think about. Number one is a saddle. Understand that bike companies will sometimes give you the minimum saddle. It may not be too comfortable for you. You may need it to be a little thicker or a little thinner based on your individual needs and preferences. Again, 5,000 to 10,000 is what you can, 5,000, 10,000 rupees is what you can expect to spend on a decent saddle. Any of your top bike companies make their saddles. Go to a bike shop and you'll be sorted. Along with the saddle, you need a good helmet. Obviously, Ironman rules dictate that your helmet cannot have any cracks. Helmets have multiple types as well. I like a helmet. I have a Giro helmet which has an inbuilt visor, and I'll come to that later why that's important. If you have the opportunity, buy that. It's around $125, $150. So we're looking at 10,000 rupees. Again, helmets, unless hopefully you won't crash, is a good investment for 3 to 5 years. Helmets also have the aero helmets. You may have seen some of the professionals wear it. Understand that in training you cannot use an aero helmet. It's just going to make things very, very hot for you. The next thing you need to buy is pedals and cleats. So pedals, you may get regular pedals with the bike, but for a full Ironman, I advise everyone, all of my trainees, or you need to invest in cleats. Again, in cleats, you have multiple options. The loops, your speed plays. I mean, just take a look at what fits your budget. You're looking somewhere between 5,000 to 10,000 rupees, but very, very important, especially for a full Ironman race, like I said. Once you're done with this is just the bike setup. What you want is also invest in a good Allen key set, and that's not going to be that expensive, but it is very, very important to have it, not just for training but also on race day. The mere chance your one of your bolts, either of the seat post or your headset, is loose, you can just quickly fix it. In terms of spare tubes, you need at least multiple, because you are never sure when you're going to get a puncture, either with training or during a race. You need the puncture clippers, basic grease, oil, just to do routine maintenance. You can either buy a hand pump, again very, very simple, or a CO2 cartridge, and it comes with its own little machine that's going to help you get air in your tires very quickly, the mere chance you get a puncture. All of this is not that expensive, looking at about 10,000 rupees. The CO2 cartridges are available in India, and they're around 300 bucks. The only thing is, once you use one cartridge, that's it, you have to throw it away. Very, very important, especially for training, to have a CO2 cartridge. Keep a pump as a backup. The extras for the bike are your goggles, and that's why I said I prefer a helmet with a visor. Then I don't have to worry about a special bike goggle. Again, it's not going to add too much money to your account. I have a growing Ironman account, 2,000 to 5,000, unless you go for a higher end Oakley or one of them. But I would highly advise that you have a goggle for your bike, especially if your helmet doesn't have a visor, a black tinted or a polarized one, because again, the sun will be out for maximum times of your 180k bike ride. Last but not least, you can see my bike is on a trainer. Having a trainer is very, very important in today's era, especially either with the lockdown or just safety in general. You can do a lot of brilliant training stuff that you can't necessarily do on the road. Trainers, again, you have a basic magnetic trainer, which is about 7 to 10,000 rupees. Understand, then your Zwift or a Ruvi, all those programs won't work on it. Again, if you want to look at a smart trainer, you have the Tactics, the Wahoo, the Elite. All of these are good companies. They have either a direct drive, which is what I have. You don't need a back wheel. Your back wheel is safe. The trainer cassette and change sits on the device itself. Basic minimum direct drive is going to cost you about 60,000 plus the price of the extra cassette. So about, you're looking at 65 to 70,000 for that. If you go for a regular smart trainer where you have to put the back wheel, a good one, a decent one, is around 22,000, and then a Tactics Vortex or one of the elite models is going to cost you around 35,000. One last point, pro tip for you for a trainer, is that make sure you buy the extra trainer tire. It's a blue in color, because what's going to happen with a regular trainer is that because of friction, if you were to use your own tire, it's going to be quite difficult. If you take it on the road, you're going to increase your chance of having a puncture. Bike tires are the last thing I will talk about. Again, your Continental Gator skins are my favorite. They run around 1,500 to 2,000 per tire. Just like you were to change on your regular bike or your car, once you decide to change, which is anywhere between 500 to 800 kilometers based on your usage, obviously, change both tires at the same time. So that concludes your cost of the bike. And then my last favorite segment is your run. run is very, very straightforward. I always tell people at least have two shoes in a 6-month window for Ironman training. That gives you the opportunity to change your shoes every 2 weeks. You're not increasing the load. Having 3 pairs is great. That way I usually have 3 pairs of the same model, just in different colors, and the week 1 I go, let's say for example, I go blue week 1, red week 2, and whatever white week 3, and I'll just keep alternating. That's going to distribute the load and make sure there's not too much wear and tear on one shoe. A decent pair of shoe again is going to cost you anywhere between 5,000 to 7,000 rupees. Over a period of 6 months, you're looking at 12 to 15,000, and that's if you were to buy, start with 2 and then add another one. Never do a race on shoe that has minimum of 50 to 60 kilometers. So you want your shoes to be in gel with your feet. Last thing you want is get blisters, and unfortunately I've seen people stop and give up because they just had too many blisters. Similarly, having socks both for the bike and the run is very, very important. Dry fit socks, they're not that expensive, 400 to 800 rupees, but make sure you invest in a good pair. Last but not least, you need a solid cap. Again, choose whichever one you want. You have ample time. Caps are probably the least expensive of all what we are going to discuss. A decent cap is going to run you 1500 plus rupees. Take it again at some point during a race. It's going to be sunny, especially on the run, especially if your run starts at around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Last point, again, if you haven't purchased a decent goggle for the bike, you're going to need it for the run. So have one pair of goggle on you at all times. I made the mistake in New Zealand that my goggle cracked. Fortunately, I was able to buy one at the expo and I was sorted. Then comes to the last part, which is your nutrition, and nutrition is very, very important. It is the 4th discipline of triathlon, and nutrition, obviously, you're looking at twofold: supplements. I always tell people, anyone above age 30, you can take a over-the-counter multivitamin. Especially, it's going to give you 1,000 international units of vitamin D. So I always take one. I take GNC, but there's thousands of them over the counter which you can buy. Barring that, you need a good source of protein. Again, you're looking at 1 gram to 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight. So someone like me who's roughly 65 kgs, I'm taking almost 100 grams of protein. And I invest in an optimum nutrition way. The significant other ones on the market, choose what you want. If you want vegetarian or vegan, those options are available as well. You want to take a protein shake every day unless you are heavily reliant on non-vegetarian food on a daily basis. Number 1 tip here is that on your rest day, it's equally important to take adequate amounts of protein, because even if you're resting, your body is rebuilding itself. It is healing from the inside. All the microfibers that you tear with training, the body is building and healing them. So protein is not only essential to build muscle, it's also important to maintain and stabilize muscle. Next, we come to the most important bit, is your racing supplements. And again, you need gels. So again, GU, Fasten Up, Univade, they all give you gels. Gels are a great way to quickly get carbohydrates in. Gels are going to give you anywhere between 20 to 25 grams per packet of gel. I take a GU gel every hour on the bike. Again, it's the easiest to carry and store on the bike and in your pocket as well. The next thing you want is a good electrolyte supplement. Racing is also about maintaining your electrolyte balance. If you have too much water, you are going to have what's called a sodium potassium deficit, and that's going to cause other issues for you during the race. So having a great electrolyte balance, again, your options here or Gatorade, Fasten Up, Univade, name it, and they're all available. Nun has great effervescent tablets as well. The last thing obviously is your salt, and salt you can take in multiple forms. One is to take a salt capsule. S-Caps is the company that comes to mind. I am not sponsored by them, just like anyone else. I just buy a bottle, and every hour I take a salt cap, and it's very, very easy. At some Ironman races, especially the Ironman North America ones, you'll get what's called base salt, and it comes salt in a tube. It's great for the run because you can control and pace yourself on the run, but it's very, very difficult on the bike. Just imagine having a little tube and you're opening it on the bike. You're adding one more element going at speed. Then you have to dip your thumb and suck it to get the amount of salt. Okay, just buy a salt cap, one every hour, store it in your bento box on the bike or the back of your tri-suit, and you're set. Last thing I want to discuss is your clothing. You want to invest in a great tri-suit. Again, your options are either a single piece. It's great for racing. A disadvantage, although some have worked on it on a single piece, is that if you have to take a pee or God forbid number 2 nature's call, it's very difficult to pull down the single piece. They have a small pocket up front that can allow you to pee, but number 2 is a challenge in a single piece. In that terms, having a 2-piece is easier. Most of these also come with pockets at the back. A decent tri-suit is going to run anywhere between 5,000 plus. I mean, they're high-end ones, Rise On, Zoot are going to be somewhere around 12,000, 15,000. So I always tell people they invest in a decent size one, and then for race they decide whatever you're comfortable with. I have used my own Brad Strong ones, and they have worked just fine for me. So with that, I hope I have adequately covered the costs of both your race costs. Like I said, Ironman race week, somewhere between 1.25 to 1.5 lakhs. And if you were to tally whatever I have told you, you're looking at around 22,000 rupees for the swim. The bike, obviously, like I said, is a little more because the bike investment itself is a one-time cost that you bear, and that's about 90,000 to 1 lakh. So for the bike, you're looking at investing around 1.5 lakhs. That's a good enough amount for you to have. And then last but not least, your run, again 18,000 for the shoes, and 2,000 for the cap plus your goggles, so about 20,000, 22,000 for your run stuff. And on average, I would say for nutrition, you're looking somewhere around 30 to 50,000. And this may sound a lot, but understand you have to practice with gels, electrolytes, and salt caps in training. Whey, as we know, is going to cost you somewhere between 3,000 to 5,000 per month. So overall, I just wanted to have you think about how much you want to invest before getting into an Ironman. And I hope to do more of these podcasts. I have another one lined up, which is going to be a special one. It's a special request from a friend. It's going to be a little more scientific, but I hope this one answers your basic question of how much does it cost to race an Ironman. If you have any questions, just drop them in the comment sections below, and I'll be happy to answer them for you. Cheers, train hard, stay safe, and we'll see you on the roads very, very soon.